So far our program, our decision structure works pretty well. If we're in space and traveling and our speed is greater than 300, we're going to get the Enterprise. Okay, that's going to be the gear that we're going to need. Otherwise, if our speed is not greater than 300, which means that it's 300, 299, -7, doesn't really matter. If it's not greater than 300, it's caught by the else, and that means that we're going to get the space shuttle. And that works fantastic for what we want to do for space. However, when we look at air, we've got a new problem, and the problem is we have more than two decisions, okay? More than two possible outcomes. And what the air says is it says, look, if you're greater than 100 miles an hour, that's fine, you get a Tomcat. If you're between 31 and 100, then you get what's called a prop plane, a propeller plane. Then 11 to 30 is a hot air balloon, and 0 to 10 is a crash. So what does that actually mean? What that means is where in space we only have two possible outcomes, our if, else work just fine. In air, that's not going to work so well. So let's go ahead, let's go down and take a look at air. I've already kind of set that up for us for what we have so far. We're in the air, and if int speed is greater than 100, we need the Enterprise. We're just going to change that Enterprise to Tomcat, so that works out just fine. So that's going to be our Tomcat. And our else right now, let's just go ahead and we're going to say crash. Okay, so we're going to crash. There, that works mostly. Problem is we've got these mixed guys right here, this hot air balloon, okay, and the prop plane. So how do we handle those? We use what's called the else if. Now in an if statement, what we've got so far is we've got if a true condition, execute this code. Otherwise, if that's not true, meaning this is false, we just run this else. It's a catch-all, doesn't check anything. You can only have one else, okay? What goes between the if and the else is what's called the else if, and that's just ElseIf. Else if, just like a regular if, it has a condition to check, and so we want to do an open curly bracket, close curly bracket. Okay, make sure that it's structured right. Again, the biggest problem people have with if statements is opening and closing those curly brackets. So they might leave one open and not close one. Also, this happens a lot. Make sure you don't do this. No semicolons. Okay, this is a very common mistake. Be sure you're not using a semicolon. Okay, so what's the story with an else if? An else if works just like an if. Number one, it comes after the if, but before any optional else's. So it'll be if, else if, else. The other thing with an else if is you can use as many as you want. There's no limit. In an if structure, this whole thing is the if structure. In an if structure, you can only have one if, one else, but you can have as many else ifs as you want. So for our else if, we're just going to start taking some numbers, and we already started with Tomcat, so we're going to do 31 to 100. So that's else if int speed is less than 32, because we've got 31, right? Yep, 31. So if it's less than 32, no, greater than 30. Okay, and I'm going to bring a couple rules up while we're talking about it. Greater than 30. So rule number one, you always want the variable to be the left side. Okay, you want that to be the left side of your conditional statement. So you always want it helps you to keep things organized in your mind and how the program's going to run. So don't flip sides with these. So int speed, that's our variable. We always want that to be the left side of our relational operator. Next thing we want to do is once we set our relational operator, in this case we're looking at greater than, we never want to switch sides again. We never want to go back and forth between our greater than, less thans. We always want to stay greater than. It keeps the program easier to manage. So now what we're doing is we're saying if int speed is greater than 30, okay, so 30 does not count, but 31 does. And so our int speed is 30 right here, 31 to 100, then we need a prop plane. So we'll just copy this line right here, and we'll do a sys.out.print line, and we'll throw in prop plane. And then we'll do one more else if. And we'll just check the speed against, let me check my last one, 11. So the speed is 11 to 30, so that's going to be greater than 10. By the way, it's okay to do like greater than or equal to 11. It's one of those things whichever works best for you. Some people use greater than equal to, which is probably what I should use because that's more concise. It's actually a better depiction of what's actually going on. Greater than or equal to 11. Other people just say, okay, well, since 31 is the number, it's got to be greater than 30. Whichever works best for you. These actually do exactly the same thing. Greater than or equal to 30 is the same thing as greater than 10. Both get the same thing. So what we're going to do with that is that's going to be, what did we have for that? Balloon, hot air. We'll just type on hot air. Okay, so there's our ElseIf. So how does the ElseIf work? Well, it's really simple. Think of it like looking for your car keys, okay? You hear a lot of people, they've lost their car keys. You say, oh, you find your car keys? Yeah, I found it. Where was it? And they'll say, well, it was the last place I looked. Well, of course it's the last place you looked. You're not going to continue looking after you found what you're looking for. Same thing with an if-else-if statement. What happens is it starts at the very top. So it'll look at int speed and it'll say, okay, if int speed is greater, let's give a value to int speed. We'll say 11. If 11 is greater than 100, well, that's a false statement, so it never even does any of this code. It jumps down to its else if. Else if 11 is greater than 30. Again, this is all false, so now it skips this section right here. Then it says else if 11 is greater than or equal to 11. This is now a true statement. It found its car keys. This is true. Execute this line of code right here, hot air, and then leave the if statement. We're not even going to check the else. We never got down that far. So whenever we run our code, we'll compile and run it. And we're just going to type in 12. So what I expect to come out for 12 is I should get a prop plane. So we're going to go OK. No, I'm sorry. You should get a hot air balloon. Click OK. And there's your hot air because 12 is not greater than 30. If I run it again, we'll do the exact same thing, except for this time I'm going to enter in 55. And we'll click OK. And 55 greater than 100, false. Else if 55 greater than 30, true. Run this code right here, sys.out.println prop plane, okay? And don't do any more code. So we're not going to look at any more of the else ifs. Else ifs are out. We're done. We come down to line 59 and finish our code, which is out of if. And that is all there is to an else if. You can have as many else ifs as you want. Just remember, you always want to match the signs, okay, for your relational operator. Keep those going the same direction. And always have your variable, whatever you're checking, on the left-hand side of your relational operator. And the condition, same as with the regular if statement, true, execute code, false, go on to the next. Else is your optional catch-all. If you get down to the else, it's going to execute that code without looking at any condition.